Welcome to the Socialette podcast, where we empower you with the marketing know-how you need to create the business of your dreams. I'm your host, Steph Taylor, and I'm a marketing nerd, Shiraz lover, and passport stamp collector. Join me as I dive into all things small business marketing and deliver them to you in bite-sized, fluff-free lessons every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let's get learning. Hey, welcome to Socialette. This is episode 126. This episode is brought to you by my free ebook, 79 Ways to Uplevel Your Business. Inside it, you'll find 79 actionable, juicy tips that you can implement in your business to start moving the needle and start seeing some real growth. Head to stephtaylor.co/79 to download it, or click the link in the show notes. Okay, this episode, I'm looking at the 5 biggest lessons I've learned about branding. Last episode, I shared a couple of branding tips that I've picked up in my time in business. This episode, I'm sharing the lessons that I've learned along the way. Most of these lessons are ones that I have learned the hard way. Like, seriously, I look at the branding for my first business and I cringe. Nothing was consistent. We sounded exactly like our competitors, and it was just all very wishy-washy and ugh. So basically, don't make the same mistakes that I did. Anyway, so on to the episode. The 5 biggest lessons I've learned about branding. Lesson number 1, your brand isn't just your logo, your colors, and your fonts. Yes, the visual stuff is a big part of it, but so is the non-visual stuff. Like how your brand speaks, how it acts, what makes you different from everyone else out there. The emotional aspect of your brand is what gives it that X factor. If you think about some of the great brands out there, there's more to them than how they look. Yes, Apple has a great logo and their branding is beautiful, but their X factor is that people see it as an extension of their personal identity. Their devices embody the lifestyle that loyal Apple customers aspire to live. Lesson number 2, clarity and consistency are so important. If you can't afford professionally designed branding, at the very least, make sure everything is consistent, even if it's consistently bad. Make sure you create your own style guide. So this is like a one-pager that lists out the fonts and the colors and the visual elements of your brand. Whenever you go to design anything, it needs to be consistent with your style guide, not just using whatever fonts and colors you happen to like on that day. And then when you go to outsource any design, if you outsource any, say, ebook design or anything like that, you can give that style guide to a designer and everything will still look consistent. Why is it important? Well, consistency creates trust and it shows people what they can expect from you. Clarity is also really important. So you need to make it crystal clear to your people what your brand direction is and what your messaging is. Lesson number 3, good branding makes everything flow so much easier. When I first started Wild Bloom with my DIY logo and my colors and my fairly wishy-washy brand messaging, it felt like an uphill battle. I felt like I constantly had to prove the business to potential clients simply because there wasn't anything to really differentiate us from all of the other marketing consultancies out there. As soon as I got the branding redone, everything just got so much easier. Massive shout out to Maddie at The Binding for the amazing job that she did on the Wild Bloom branding because it made a huge difference to the business. Lesson number 4, take your brand into account when making decisions. This is where it really helps to know what your brand stands for. So here's an example. If your brand believes in supporting local producers and you're faced with the decision to save a huge amount of money on ingredients for your product, but in doing so you'd have to import them from overseas, well, you should be using your brand values to guide that decision. In fact, lots of brands have got into trouble for listing values on their website, but not actually using these to guide their behavior. I'm not going to name any names, but there have been a few pretty famous cases of these in the past. And then lastly, lesson 5, your branding is never done. Just like your business constantly evolves and grows, your brand should too. And if it doesn't, well, that's probably not a good thing. I'm not saying that you should jump on every trend and rebrand every 6 months, but occasionally there will be things that need to be tweaked or refreshed just to stay relevant and up to date. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes released every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you're enjoying this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to just leave a really quick rating and review. It means a lot to me when you do. All right, thanks guys. Catch you next time.